Chapter 197 to 199. Chaos. Everyone screamed upon see that Cell was alive and had caught his little friend in the worst possible way. Have. Chaos yelled in great pain, which was completely paralyzed from the neck down due to Cell's little needle. Damn. Not only have we not killed him, he has also masked his energy to ambush us. Goku said, who was able to do a quick analysis of the situation. He wasn't an idiot after all, Piccolo thought, upon see the great move of Cell. The joint attack of Ten Shinhan and Mutant Rashi had seriously injured Cell, but thanks to Frieza's cells that allowed him to survive very serious mutilations and Piccolo's cells, which allowed him to regenerate the maimed parts of his body. He was able to recover almost completely. Later he masked all his energy and hid among the rubble until they left. Or better yet, he managed to catch one of them and use him as a human shield. Damn, this time you will not escape, Piccolo said, who put two of his fingers on his forehead and channeled energy into them. The objective was obvious. Repeat the same play that he made years ago with Goku and Raditz. Wait Piccolo, you will kill Chaos. He cannot be revived with the Dragon Ball anymore. Shouted Ten Shinhan and the rest to stop Piccolo and his plan full collateral damages. A protest that manifested in an oral and physical way, since Ten even grabbed his hand and Goku got in the way. Something that prevented Piccolo from being able to shoot. Ha ha ha. That's right. If you value your friend's life, you'd better stay away from me, Cell said, feeling again that he had the situation more or less under control while absorbing Chaos little by little. On the other hand, Chaos was being subjected to a brutal torture that not even a well-trained and modified warrior could bear. 10. Screams that shocked his friends, who didn't know very well what to do this time. The only one who was able to keep a cool head was Piccolo, who tried to make them see that they couldn't stay without doing anything. Do you think you can negotiate with that monster? Do you think that if we give in to his demands, he will return Chaos safe and sound? Insensitive comment that hurt the feelings of the rest of the Z warriors, especially Ten Shinhan, but on the other hand Piccolo was right, and they knew it. But despite that, it's a pity, Piccolo is someone who doesn't get carried away by emotions. And I doubt they will let me absorb him quietly. Especially Piccolo, that ki that he had concentrated in his fingers was superior to all that I could have in this form. I have to think of something to get rid of them and enjoy this high container of energy at the same time, Cell thought, who was beginning to feel nervous and in danger due to Piccolo's power and that he didn't negotiate with terrorists. Luckily for him they gave him a free distraction. Goku-san, guys. Papa, Piccolo. Since Trunks and the clone of Gohan who had come down with him and the clone of Bulma to investigate the mystery of the abandoned time machine had arrived at the place of the fight. Trunks? So, then he also came to this era in the time machine? Well, what difference does it make? This may give me a chance, thought Cell, who pointed his arm at the two mongrel Saiyans not transformed into Super Saiyan with the obvious intention of attacking them by surprise with an energy attack that could kill them ipso facto. J. Oh no. Everyone shouted upon realized that he had taken advantage of that moment of distraction to attack. Gohan. Goku and Piccolo shouted when they saw their favorite son in danger. Plom. Luckily for him and Trunks. Piccolo he was able to deflect the blow. Although that caused Piccolo to separate too much from Cell. And this one took the opportunity to rise in the air, just under the sun. Ah ha ha. Chaos screamed even louder, being sucked with greater speed and violence. Bastard! Everyone screamed upon hearing Chaos' agonizing screams and due to the surprise attack he had made earlier in which minors could have died. Thank you for your offering. I will make sure I digest it well. No matter how you may try to prevent me from becoming my perfect form, it will come to nothing. Cell said as he continued to consciously suck Chaos and put his green hands on his ugly face to perform one of the most effective and underrated techniques of the show. Ken. Ah! My eyes! Everyone yelled while covering their eyes due to the glow of the Teoken. An ability with which he blinded everyone and with which Cell took the opportunity to escape, suck Chaos with great speed so as not to have a dead weight on his tail that could give away his position to the others. Strange. How is it possible that Chaos and the other humans have become so strong? This energy. It is evident that absorbing him I would gain more energy than with him that the other inferior humans. But this is too much, it's hundreds of times what I could gather from Piccolo's arm. This is too much. I have absorbed almost everything without any problem. It's like, if Chaos was born to be eaten by me. With this power that I have now, would I be able to face Piccolo? No, it is better not to take any risk. I must concentrate on strengthening myself in the safest way possible. For now, Cell thought as he moved away from that place as fast as possible and admired the power he had achieved just by devouring the weakest of the group. Moments later. When everyone regained their sight, they can withstand nuclear explosions without problems, but the sun's rays are too much for their eyes. Dragon Ball logic. Curse. He can also use that technique. Krillin said surprised, although this technique was capable of being performed by anyone who has seen it a couple of times, or only one. He has escaped. Mutant Rashi yelled as he searched the surroundings. He's suppressing his ki dissipation again. I can't find him. Goku said, if he could detect his ki, he would have teleported to his location to follow him. And the ki of chaos has disappeared. No. Cell. You'll pay for this. Shouted Ten Shinhan as he swore revenge for his useless friend who fell in action. Damn it. I got careless. I already had him. I was about to make him tell me everything. I was about to easily kill him after he told me everything. Shouted Piccolo, that due to his fury he felt for this great failure. A great failure caused largely by the stupid intervention of the Earthlings, who has always made an appearance when no one had asked them and where they could hardly contribute anything. Incredible, Trunks said as he felt Piccolo's power from so close. Such overwhelming power that both Trunks and the others had to release practically all of their ki to withstand that turbulent hurricane of energy. Sorry Piccolo. We thought we could help Anne. Goku Super Saiyan said, who recognized that come here in this way without knowing the situation 100% wasn't a good idea. Due to his unnecessary intervention, lack of seriousness, distraction and little caution, that monster had escaped, killing another of his companions and surely becoming more powerful. They had screwed up one more time. I think it's a bad time to tell them that I warned you that coming here wasn't a good idea, Gohan thought, who was also partly to blame for this misfortune for having come without undue need. Counting them, there were only 3 more people left to join the talk. And they weren't far from there. Piccolo. It can't be. Vegeta said very shocked, he couldn't believe that such a powerful ki was coming from Piccolo's, a ki much more powerful than his. And that ki was the Rashi, Ten and Krillin. How is this possible? Yam said, that just like Vegeta couldn't believe that those 3 humans had gotten so strong in a few hours. And whose was the other ki? From Yumagame? Ginger said, that after seeing so much absurd power-up she had no choice but to take this matter with some humor. Vegeta, Yam, Ginger. Goku said when he saw the other Saiyans, the weakest right now, had arrived. Dad! Trunks exclaimed, who was still searching for the father he never had. Kakarot, I am glad to see you alive. What happened here? Ginger asked, who was the friendliest Saiyan invader and who had the most contact with the group. It's quite a long explanation, which I think Gohan and Bulma will be able to answer better, Mutant Rashi said, who wanted to talk to Ginger one more time. Although they tried to keep their distance and not look at each other too much. Especially Ginger, who was aware of her flaws, though she didn't want to acknowledge them. Yes, it would be better to go back to Bulma's spaceship, there we can better plan the situation. But I warn you that you will not like what you have to hear. Dad, can you teleport us all back? Gohan said as he grabbed his father's pants, as if he were a child asking for money for a candy. But Cell. However, Ten Shinhan, who had just lost his friend, didn't like that idea. He wanted to go after him to get revenge. And do it now. Fortunately, his friends like Krillin, Mutant Rashi and Goku tried to stop him from doing something stupid. Ten, I know how you feel, but I think we should be more careful this time. Because of us, things may, well, have gotten worse. Let's try not to spoil it even more. Okay. Ten Shinhan nodded, who tried to think rationally despite the hatred and thirst for blood he was feeling right now. Beforehand, I want you to answer me this. Are you really Piccolo, Ten Shinhan, Rashi and Krillin? How did you come to have all that battle power? Vegeta demanded to know, he needed to know why everyone was stronger than him now that he had become a Super Saiyan. Piccolo-san has once again merged with Kami-sama and Krillin and the others have undergone an operation to become modified humans with unlimited energy, Trunks replied, who kept trying to get his father to pay attention to him. What's this? Merged? Like Nail? Ginger asked, beginning to feel self-conscious about how convenient the Namekian biology is. Modified? So, wasn't Bulma bragging? Yam asked, who still couldn't believe that in a single day and in such a simple way these poor guys would have surpassed them despite having been training for years to reach the Super Saiyan. Yes, that's right, Goku answered solemnly to the other 3 weak of the group. Just from that. I'm sure the battle powers I felt before was even higher than mine as a Super Saiyan. Impossible. They are just mere Namekians and Earthlings. Yam thought with great bitterness, as they had once again destroyed her conception of the universe in which the Super Saiyans were the strongest. What's this fucking joke? They dare to make a fool of me. Everyone is easily outspacing the Super Saiyan, greatest in the universe. That's absurd. What happened to the legend? Kakarot. Did that legend only refer to Broly? Vegeta thought with the same bitterness as Yam, who quite rightly began to doubt the real meaning of the legend and who exactly he was referring to. Bulma's spaceship. And that's all I know, said Bulma, who after a few minutes explained in detail what Cell was and what his goals were to everyone. That explanation obviously didn't leave anyone indifferent. The threat of the 3 androids of unlimited energy was a minor problem. The real threat is the biological Terminator that devour other androids. Things had gotten very interesting and extremely dangerous. If we don't prevent Cell, C-17Y C-18 from merging, no matter the cost, things will get unbearable. Said Trunks, who was obviously the one who most wanted to kill androids, especially the ones that had killed him in another timeline. And not just for Earth. It will be terrible for all the worlds in the universe. Don't forget that he has Frieza and his father's blood running through him as well. Piccolo said, estimating the threat level of the new monster fairly well. Yes. And we can feel lucky that there were no Broly cells in that timeline, said Bulma, trying to relax the atmosphere with that almost humorous comment. However, no one could relax upon hearing that. Everyone's blood ran cold. Just thinking that a monster like that could even have a quarter of Broly's power and ability took away their appetite. Just imagining it made them sweat blood from every pore. This had been without a doubt the most terrifying relief they had ever felt, one that had left them speechless. However, Vegeta wasn't like the others, his pride in this saga was totally out of control. So out of control and out of touch with reality that even said stupid things like that thing have my blood too. You've got nothing but clumsy strategies. If he wants to merge with them, then let him. It'll reduce the number of opponents we have to beat and save us some trouble. I don't care what becomes of my enemy. I'll just kill them anyhow. Right, Kakaroto? Ginger. Yam. However, to his surprise, his greatest rival and the crazy man Goku didn't share his opinion this time. Vegeta, I find it difficult to say this, but I think this time it will be better not to take unnecessary risks. An answer that the proud Saiyan prince didn't like at all. You fucking coward, so he tried to seek support from his trusted Saiyans Ginger, Yam. However, Vegeta would be disappointed one more time. You see. Ginger murmured, not wanting to express her discontent in the presence of her sister and Vegeta, but since a while ago she began to seriously consider what the best course of action would be. Vegeta. Normally I would agree with you, but I think we have already committed enough recklessness. Let's try to fix this problem consistently. We will have more opportunities in the future to prove that we are the strongest, said Yam, who was trying to make Vegeta think with his head and not with testosterone. Obviously this answer was considered a kind of betrayal by Vegeta, who no one supported in his folly. What are you insinuating? Are you cowering just because a Namek, some test tube humans, and a monster made from our scraps have temporarily outpaced us? Where is your pride of? Vegeta. Stop. I know you don't care about the Earth or anyone's life, not even yours if for that you have to give up your stupid pride. But believe me when I tell you that your stupid delusions matter to all of us even less, Gohan said. Very angry and disgusted with Vegeta and his selfish superiority complex yet to be satisfied. What are you saying, dwarf? Do you want me to give you the beating that I didn't give you years ago? Vegeta replied, who had certainly lost connection with reality. Vegeta. Goku and Yam said, to subtly let him see that he was raving. Try it if you dare, Chi-Chi and Piccolo said, who in an unsubtle way hinted that he would receive a little beating if he dared to touch Gohan. The situation was so tense that even Trunks and Bulma tried to mediate so that to avoid unauthorized fights in a part of the spaceship not prepared to withstand a battle between monsters. Gohan, you better. But Gohan didn't care, he had a lot stored inside him and needed to let it go at once before it seized in his throat and brain. Always the same. You are always saying the same things. That you are the strongest, that you are the prince of the Saiyans, that if your pride, that if... Bah! You are pathetic. You proclaimed yourself the strongest when you came to Earth. And what was the result? You lost against my father, you could have lost against me, against Piccolo, and Broly Senior did what he wanted with you. And you know what was the funniest thing of all? That you didn't proclaim yourself the strongest in the universe due to ignorance, since you were working for Frieza, whom you knew you couldn't defeat. Ha! Neither Frieza nor his strongest henchman. No. It wasn't ignorance, which may be excusable. It's stupidity, it's delirium. You really thought you were the strongest despite the fact that all the empirical tests contradicted it over and over again. I don't know if it was your father who put those ideas in your head, if you just convinced yourself by hypnosis or by a blow to the head. But it's not true. Recognize the reality. And once you became a Super Saiyan, what you always wanted, your delusion got worse. You took a legend created by fanatics like you literally and thought you were the strongest in the universe for that despite the evidence that you weren't. And with this added pretext that you believe yourself superior to all other Saiyans by reason of birth, you set out to prove to yourself and others that your delusions that had never been true were true. Putting us all in danger with it. Outcome? They beat you, they humiliated you. Again. And this is already the third or fourth time that the same happened to you. This is something that should have made you reflect and understand that you are not the strongest, that you have never been and never will be. Something that should have made you reflect on the danger we face. And, haha, now you say that you are going to defeat a monster made with everyone's cells once it absorbs C-17 and C-18, which you couldn't even make bleed. I laugh, but it's not funny, it's pathetic. You are a complete idiot who wants to fall 5 or 6 times on the same stone. And what's worse, you want to throw us all on the ground with you for your stupidity. Stop insisting, Vegeta. You are the prince of a planet that doesn't exist, of a race half exterminated due to the stupidity of your family, and you have been surpassed by other Saiyans and even by Earthlings on various occasions. You are nobody. You aren't the strongest. And nobody cares that a being as despicable as you could be the strongest. Mature at 1 and go see a psychiatrist to get fixed what is wrong with your head. Hard words. Harsh words from a child tired of so much incoherence, irresponsibility, and bad behaviors around him. A child tired of bearing so much unnecessary stupidity. Go, Gohan. Chi-Chi yelled, shocked by everything Gohan had said. Wow! Exclaimed most of those present, who were fascinated with the analysis of Vegeta's delusions of grandeur. Even Yam and Vegeta were completely speechless and not knowing what to say before that explosion of criticism and psychological analysis. I'm sorry. If you'll excuse me, I'll go to training, said Gohan, who moved away from the group to calm down and get away from this environment that was making him completely mad. I think some of these phrases were heard from Broly, Bulma thought as she watched as Gohan entered a training room. It was evident that Broly had quite influenced his speech and his complaints towards Vegeta, a lot. However, as Gohan put it, Vegeta's brain wasn't working properly, so he continued with his bombastic speech, don't you us that big shot tone with me, brat. I will go beyond, count on it. Beyond even Super Saiyan. Beyond Super Saiyan? Said Trunks, fascinated with the idea of becoming stronger as a Saiyan. And seeing that he finally had some support in that room, even if it was his illegitimate son from the alternate future, Vegeta continued looking for support in that hostile place. Kakarot, you surely have thought the same. Right? On that day. That day Broly transformed. That was definitely something beyond the Super Saiyan. And Vegeta was right, he also had the same aspiration, only with a certain different nuance, so he wanted to communicate it to him. Yes, I thought so too, and I have a hunch. But... shut up. You all do whatever you wish among yourselves. Kakarot, teleport me out of this spaceship if you don't want me to destroy it, Vegeta said, who due to his anger didn't let Goku finish speaking and threatened everyone stupidly, as always. Don't even think about it. Shouted Bulma upon hearing that this idiot was going to do something stupid like that. Calm, Vegeta. I wanted to propose to you, Ginger and Yam, to train here on this ship. You will not believe it, but one day here is equivalent to a year in some rooms of this spaceship. Not only that, there are options to increase the temperature. It's perfect for training, said Goku, explaining the existence of a very convenient room to train. What? Is there such a thing? Exclaimed Ginger, who was overly expressive when there were surprises. It is similar to the hyperbolic room of the Kami Temple. Was this the reason why you entered it twice, Bulma? Piccolo asked, feeling as if a business secret had been stolen from him. That's right, I needed data. I advise that just as in the Kami temple room, only 2 people enter to train at the same time. The rooms aren't small and they take well the blows, but it is better not to overload them at the moment, said Bulma, explaining the correct methods of use. Wait. We had something so convenient and haven't used it before. Some of those who lived under the threat of various apocalypses asked. Okay. I accept your proposal, make sure you train hard too. After all this happens, you are the next one I'm going to beat up, and then your son, Vegeta said, as kind as ever. We'll see about that, Goku said, showing great confidence in his abilities over and above those of his self-proclaimed rival. Yam, come on, I'll need someone to train with, Vegeta said, indicating the way in which she should follow him. However, Vegeta would be disappointed this day. This time I will train with Ginger. Like you, I also have an idea of how to overcome the Super Saiyan, but I doubt that Ginger knows how. Hey, don't treat me like a stupid child, Ginger protested, feeling a bit underestimated by her sister. Gur. Okay, do what you want. Trunks, come with me, you may be useful to me this time, Vegeta said with great anger towards his flirt, who felt in his own way that she was betraying him. So he tried to get revenge in the most absurd way he could think of, paying attention to Trunks, his illegitimate son from the future he had with Bulma. Yes, father, replied Trunks, who was very happy that his evil father finally paid attention to him. Don't call me that way. Vegeta protested, since had the sensitivity, empathy and kindness of a stone, as we all know. Okay, Trunks said, ducking his head and ears like a dog that had just been scolded as he walked through the bedroom door to spend a year alone with that curmudgeon. The same thing happened with Ginger and Yam, who silently arranged to enter another room to perform the same type of training. No one said anything except for mutant Rashi Ginger. Cheer up. Then. Of course. Ginger replied, trying not to look at him as she entered the room with her sister. Okay, I'll train with Gohan, so everything stays in the family, Goku said, who was crazy to go back to training again. However, his training had to wait a few more minutes. He was the only one with the ability to teleport, that made him the taxi of the whole group. Goku, before you go to enter, could you send me to Earth? I have to locate and defeat Cell to correct my mistake from before, Piccolo said, who couldn't sit idly by at that moment, especially when he knew that a little training in his case wouldn't make a difference in this battle. But before Goku agreed to that small favor, Bulma created the final cliffhanger of the chapter. I also wanted to talk to you about this. Cell may have grown much stronger by absorbing chaos. As strong as you, Piccolo. But before Goku agreed to that small favor, Bulma created the final cliffhanger of the chapter. I also wanted to talk to you about this. Cell may have grown much stronger by absorbing chaos. As strong as you, Piccolo. What have you said? Everyone screamed upon hearing that incredible informational 1 million megaton bomb that exploded directly in their testicles. I know, I am a poet. But despite the impact that this comment caused on our impressionable warriors, this statement also raised certain doubts, as is normal in this type of situation. Bulma, are you sure you aren't exaggerating? Have you seen how strong he is now that he has merged with Kami? Yes, I know. This was the reason why I didn't want you to go to fight him. But as always, you never listened to me. Bulma protested, showing her anger in a very effusive way. At first they ignored her several times, and now they doubted her. She felt insulted. Okay. We are sorry, replied the 4 irresponsible who left recklessly later while bowing in regret and apology before the angry Bulma. And Bulma, seeing that those 4 idiots at least showed some regret, continued with the explanation that our heroes skipped and that the readers didn't have time to read because the previous chapter could have been made very long and with repeated information. What I wanted to tell you is that I based our biological transformation, which improves our physique, in C-17 and C-18. But at the same time, the way in which your body converts the unlimited energy that the 2 of them have into Ki and distributes it throughout your body was based on Cell. Or at least in the way that he absorbs it. I haven't understood anything. Goku said, who missed some technical details. However, this was something within Bulma's calculations, so she tried to simplify her explanation a bit more so that we could continue using Ki and not have mechanical parts inside of us like the unlimited energy reactors that C-17 and C-18 carry inside. I took Cell, or at least his theatrical base as a base, which can obtain more power and unlimited energy without giving up his Ki through the absorption of biological components and energy reactors of C-17 and C-18. Do you understand what I mean? I think that. No. They said Goku, 10, Rashi and Krillin at the same time, since none of them went to school as a child and they didn't know anything about mechanics and biology. But to everyone's surprise, someone not very well versed in science, but in magic and other fantastic things, did understand Bulma's riddle, and that was Piccolo with Kami's centuries-old wisdom. Does that mean that the compatibility between the humans modified by you and Cell is excessively high? Exactly, Piccolo. I'm surprised that you understood it so easily, Bulma said with joy upon seeing that someone present was able to understand the conversation except for Gohan and Trunks. I have my circumstances, Piccolo answered, who had some experience with mergers and themes of that style. Bulma, what are you trying to say? Goku asked once more, who still didn't understand her or at least preferred not to have to think. It is something very simple. When someone eats something, based on how compatible that food is with his body, he will be able to extract more energy from that food with less effort. In the same way, it will be easier for the body to process that energy and store it in each of its cells. And Cell's absorption ability is the same, Bulma said again, this time simplifying the explanation so that even the dumbest would be able to understand. That means, are we the perfect food for Cell and that he can convert almost all of our power and energy into his when he absorbs us? Ten Shinhan asked, terrified of the consequences of this chilling theory with real scientific knowledge. And upon hearing Ten's correct conclusion, Bulma nodded, finishing explaining why she didn't want them to approach Cell, something like that. In addition, it will even be easier with you all, since he's built with your cells. It would be similar to what could happen if he devours C-17 and C-18 at once. At least his first time has been like this if we are optimistic and pessimistic at the same time. An informational bomb that exploded again near the ass of our protagonists, who had begun to believe, understand, and accept that the situation had become more complicated despite the power-ups they had received. Or rather, it had become this dangerous due to having achieved a power-up in strength but not in brain. The situation is so serious? Krillin asked dumbfounded, who couldn't believe that they had screwed up so much this time. But Bulma confirmed it again, yes, it can be. But, we cannot fix the past. It will be better to look for solutions in the future. However, this time she did it with a little more tact and without ensuring 100% that they are fucked for their fault so that they didn't feel so guilty for Chaos' death and for having complicated the situation much more. Krillin, Mutant Rashi's face, and especially Ten's, showed great regret and guilt at that moment, so Bulma felt compassion and decided not to continue pointing out the flaws. Compassion that she would regret too quickly. You are an irresponsible Bulma. How could you turn them into modified humans if something like this could happen? Goku said, not only did he not grasp the situation, he also behaved like an idiot when reaching that conclusion. What? Everyone shouted upon hearing those controversial and out-of-place statements. But above all, he angered the beast. Plash. Boom. Wah. A very short-tempered female beast that had undergone an operation to become a very powerful being. Much more powerful than a normal Super Saiyan. How dare you protest? Plash. If you hadn't teleported there when I and Gohan begged you not to go, this wouldn't have happened. Boom. If you had listened to me 3 years ago, none of this would be happening. Crash. How did you pretend me to anticipate that a project postponed by Jero would come from the future to fulfill its hypothetical purpose? Pounch. I did enough making you stronger to beat C-16, C-17, and C-18 to correct your mistake and to prepare you for future threats. Pung. And despite to warn you all, you recklessly. Again. Due to your stupid fighting obsession you unnecessarily messed it all up one more time. Track-a-track. And is it supposed to be my fault? Shouted Bulma, who seemed to have turned into an ogre as she grabbed Goku by the neck and hit him hard with each sentence. But not only with each phrase or after each phrase. Pom. Pum. Plash. So much and so hard that the blows could be heard in the closest soundproof rooms. Pum. Plash. So much and so hard that was causing a small earthquake in that room and almost the entire spacecraft. Pounch. Track-a-track. Bulma hit him so hard that even Goku was able to understand that he had said something wrong, that he couldn't defend himself and had no choice but to show true regret. Bulma, mercy. I'm sorry. Pounch. Apologies almost accepted. Someone give him a senzu bean. Bulma said as she threw an extremely injured Goku to the ground. So hurt, especially in the face that anyone could hardly recognize him. PL Lash. And with that throw, This violent episode ended, which made everyone who witnessed that brutal beating reflect deeply. Long ago believed that there was nothing more terrifying than an angry Bulma. Now I know that there is nothing more dangerous than an angry and powerful Bulma, Krillin and Mutant Roshi thought with terror, since in the past together with Goku and Yamcha they had been the ones who had made Bulma angry the most. And for this they thanked heaven that she hadn't found a way to operate herself in the past. Good heavens! With this operation even a rabbit is capable of devouring a dinosaur. Ten Shinhan and Piccolo thought upon see that Bulma in action for the first time. Her first combat and victory, that consisted of beating Goku Super Saiyan. I think I'll ask her to operate on me too when this is resolved. It might be useful to have that strength, Chi-Chi thought after being inspired by that brutal beating. So I'll make it clear. The modified ones won't go to fight Cell, we can't afford any more mistakes. And Goku, Piccolo, before you leave we need to do something with the Dragon Balls, said Bulma, giving orders again. Orders that she wouldn't allow to be breached this time. It is true, due to Piccolo's union with Kami the Dragon Balls have lost their function, now they are only stones, said Krillin, who recalled that Piccolo's power-up had a quite important adverse effect for them. Especially if they wanted to resurrect their friends and be irresponsible again in the future. Yes, and we need the Dragon Balls as soon as possible to fix this mess. So now you can do something. I can't do everything myself, shouted Bulma, who kept expelling her anger in the form of beatings and orders. Goku, we would have to ask on Namek to see if someone with talent to create Dragon Balls would want to be the new Kami, Piccolo said as he gave Goku a senzu bean to recover from Bulma's blows. Yes, I'll go right now, as soon as I teach Gohan how to become a Super Saiyan and leave Piccolo on Earth, Goku said as he tried to get up and forget his recent humiliation. Didn't you hear me before? No, of course not. Anyway, do what you want. It tires me to warn you. But fix the Dragon Ball first, said Bulma, who gave up on applying some caution or common sense to this group of crazy warriors. Piccolo-san, are you really going to fight Cell? Said Gohan, who left the room where he was training with the spy sphere that he borrowed from Bulma to have past references of his father, Vegeta, Yam, Ginger and Piccolo in his training, among other things. Yes, I am the best suited for it. I don't know if I can destroy it, but at the very least I will try to prevent it from devouring more humans, or androids. At least I'll do time until you six are ready, Piccolo answered, who decided to take responsibility for saving the planet, since for now he was the only viable option. If you are going to go, will be better if you can locate him. Take this device and put it on your ear. The tracker I made before doesn't work with him so I'll have to guide you to his position in case you lose sight of him again, said Bulma, who despite not liking the idea of someone leaving, didn't totally disagree with Piccolo's initiative. And how do you plan to do that? Piccolo asked curiously. Simple. I will track him with my magic sphere that Gohan has in his hand and I will notify you from here, Bulma as she took the sphere that Gohan was handing her for the demonstration. Demonstration in which Cell could be seen devouring human beings in a rather disgusting and terrifying way. Something unusual in the actual family-friendly anime shonen where you hardly see nowadays blood. It's a very useful thing, said Chi-Chi, who was also interested in getting one for several reasons. Also take some senzu bean, Piccolo. Trunks and I went to look for some in case someone got hurt again, Gohan said, who had thought of everything again. But if things were already complicated, and more or less a temporary solution had been found for them. Of course, someone had to add new problems. This Bulma. Can you also tell us what is the position of C-16, C-17 and C-18? We need to warn them of what is happening, Krillin said, expressing himself in a somewhat clumsy way, a sign that he was hiding his true intentions. Why do you want to know that, Krillin? Goku asked innocently, but bringing up the doubts that those words raised. That was something that made Krillin very nervous, and that caused him to express himself more awkwardly, an awkwardness that made more evident what was already obvious, I mean. There is a dangerous monster that tries to absorb them, they should be warned so that they don't get caught easily. It's to prevent Cell from reaching his perfect form. Nothing more. Stare. An explanation that didn't convince even Goku, who didn't know the story behind Krillin's crush by the attractive android who beat up Vegetas and wanted to kill Goku. Why do you look at me like that? This, telling the truth. Said Krillin, hurting himself more with every word that came out of his mouth. So much so that Bulma in an excessively sarcastic way said to Krillin while Mutant Roshi played pranks on his applauded student, yes, we believe you. And let me guess. Will you go to warn them? Exposing you to the possibility of Cell eating you too. This. I think it is inevitable that some of us have to go. Piccolo has to go for Cell, Goku has to find a new Kami and train with Gohan, and the other Saiyans are training too, Krillin replied, half apologizing for the idea he had by the fact that only modified humans could warn them. Unfortunately, he is right. Although, Gohan said as he sighed towards Bulma. Aish. And surely you will be against destroying it with my device too. Right? Said Bulma, who was hoping that she could end a potential problem quickly and efficiently, despite the moral implications. Yes, Bulma. I have been following their past and what they do now. They are not saints, as they have committed some theft and damage against public and private property, but although they have had the opportunity to kill and injure many people in the process, they haven't hurt anyone. I don't think it's fair to take their lives. Even in these circumstances, said Gohan, whose moral code prevented him from killing some people who so far hadn't killed anyone except for the bastard who kidnapped them, performed dangerous operations on them without their consent and enslaved them for years, I find it justified. If you don't mind Krillin, I will accompany you. Maybe we can downsize them and bring them here to reschedule if we cooperate, Mutant Rashi said, worried that Krillin might get into trouble down there. More than anyone he knew how dangerous is face a sexy woman. And I will also accompany you, they are 3. If for some reason the negotiations turn hostile, it will be better if we are in numerical equality, said Ten Shinhan, who didn't want to sit idly by. That was definitely a moving scene. A moment where it was shown that friendship between men is something solid and seamless. A strong friendship that pushed 2 people to risk their lives to ensure that a third's life couldn't be in danger despite the fact that this third person was risking his life and that of practically the entire universe for having a tiny hope of flirting with a woman he theoretically wanted to kill his best friend and who in another parallel universe killed him and everyone. A moving scene that showed to the world and universe how far a man can go to fuck or at least trying to fuck. Risking his life, that of his friends, and that of the universe. Scene that demoralized Bulma even more, who had practically given up in her attempts not to create unstable and dangerous situations, yes, or you could alert Cell about your position if you decide to fight or something similar. Something that could create the possibility of giving him 5 of his favorite foods with which to evolve to a point beyond his perfect form and kill us all. Anyway. Why do I keep trying? Take some locators. With them you can easily detect them, thank you Bulma, Krillin said with relief, since until this moment he was afraid that Bulma would beat him in the same way she did with Goku to prevent him from leaving the spaceship. Yes. Do what you want. One of my clones is already in Kami's palace, when you have brought the new Kami I will be waiting for you with the Dragon Balls, said Bulma, who was staring at a fixed point while trying to pretend that she didn't care about anything. Okay Bulma. Gohan, I'll leave them on Earth and be back in a moment. I will help you transform and then I will go for the new Kami. Once these errands are finished we will train together, Goku said to his son while Piccolo, Krillin, Ten Shinhan and Mutant Rashi touched him on the back to start the teleportation as soon as possible. You don't have to help me with the transformation. I was there when you taught Yam and I heard perfectly how the transformation is achieved. I think I'm close to achieving it. Come back to train seriously with me, when I'm a Super Saiyan like you, Gohan replied enthusiastically. Become as strong as you can as soon as possible. We will need your valuable help, Piccolo said with great confidence that Gohan could be decisive in this crazy conflict. That's right. My son is the strongest in the world, Broly doesn't count, said Goku, who really thought from his heart that his son could surpass him and everyone, Broly doesn't count, if he tried hard enough and believed in himself. Count me in Piccolo, Papa, Gohan replied quite blushed by the praise of 2 of his 3 father figures. All right. Let's go back to Earth and then to Namek. Goku said as he disappeared with Piccolo, Krillin, Ten Shinhan and Mutant Rashi. As Gohan re-entered the training room with more determination than before. While Chi-Chi told him to take some books in case he got bored. While Bulma drowned her sorrows in alcohol, Broly, why have you left me alone with these idiots? And while Broly watched all that with interest from his private cinema on his private planet in his private universe, eating popcorn and drinking cola non-stop since the day began until now. There was only one thing that worried him, when I come back Bulma will be very angry with me. I have to prepare some countermeasures. While Vegeta, Trunks, Yam, Ginger and Gohan were training in the time compression rooms and one of Bulma's body drowned her sorrows in alcohol. Goku, Piccolo, Ten Shinhan, Mutant Rashi, and Krillin suddenly appeared at Kami-sama's palace, where Popo and one of Bulma's bodies were waiting for them. From there each one went in a different direction. Goku made a stop on the planet of North Kai, to ask him for help to locate the planet Namek, since thanks to Broly it was very difficult to know where it is. Piccolo, following the instructions of one of Bulma's bodies, went in search of Cell, to prevent him from continuing to devour humans and to become stronger with it. And Krillin, Rashi, and Ten went in search of Krillin's future wife, the one forgotten by Toriyama in the following season and the nicest person/robot that has ever existed in this show. Those three androids continued their stupid car trip to kill Goku, not being pursued by the police at the state level for their crimes as if this were GTA, where after a while of avoiding the police all the crimes prescribed. A trip that was being very quiet, although with certain shocks caused by C-16, which noticed on several occasions very powerful keys. Some powerful keys that could even beat C-17 and C-18 with ease, warnings that were quickly classified as calculation errors. And once again C-16 had to give the same news. There are three very powerful keys that are approaching us, said C-16, who stopped looking at the flowers and wild animals through the window and directed his gaze towards the sky. How? Again? Believe me C-16, that radar that Dr. Gero installed on you surely broke down during your hibernation. If it ever worked, C-17 said that, still believed that C-16 software worked worse than Windows Vista. Wait C-17, I'm seeing three people approaching us. Flying. Those are Krillin, Ten Shinhan and Mutant Rashi. Said C-18, who wasn't as skeptical as her brother and at least looked towards where C-16 was indicating them. Those three are your powerful keys. Your radar is definitely faulty, C-17 said sarcastically, continuing with the joke about C-16's factory issues. In a few seconds our three former bald and bald heroes of their own accord landed in front of them, preventing the advance of the stolen van in which they were driving without a driver's license or wearing a seatbelt. C-16, C-17, C-18. The three said unnecessarily to announce that hey, come to speak on that deserted road. Hello guys. We haven't finished our game of looking for Goku yet, when we are tired we will ask you for his location. But for now be patient, C-17 said as the three got out of the stolen vehicle to talk to them. Not for education or something similar, they simply didn't want the van to be damaged due to carelessness, since it would be difficult for them to find another one near there. Or do you want to stop us from playing this stupid game? Don't be offended, but... That is something impossible for you, said C-18, who was the one who moved the least away from the vehicle. She didn't like standing too much if it was avoidable. And obviously that they underestimated them in such a way annoyed our heroes a bit, especially Ten Shinhan, who was the one who was most upset right now by what had happened to his dwarf. Do you want to bet something? Fortunately Krillin didn't forget what the official objective of this dangerous expedition was, apart from being close to C-18, wait 10. We aren't here to fight. Then what do you want? Convince us again not to kill Goku. We have already explained that it is impossible, said C-18, reminding them of the conversation they had a few hours ago. What if it wasn't impossible? What if there was a way to change your programming so that you don't have the need to kill Goku or do anything else? Krillin said, trying to explain to them that there was a solution to that problem in a way that could arouse their interest. What do you mean? C-17 asked, quite alerted like C-18 by the severity of the implications of Krillin's words. Even C-16, who had been caressing a little bird without worrying about anything, looked away to pay attention to Krillin. And Krillin, upon seeing that he had managed to capture the attention of the three androids, continued with his evangelizing speech. What would you say if I told you that Bulma, our scientist, has found a way to remove that programming, as well as remove your bombs? I would tell you that I find it quite unbelievable. And even if it were possible, it would prevent you from deactivating us, erasing our memory or killing us during the supposed operation. Do you expect us to just believe you? C-18 said, being quite skeptical of both the capabilities and intentions of her potential enemies. A fairly understandable reaction. They couldn't be sure if they were telling the truth. It is clear that to reprogram them and remove the bombs they would need to be off and let them play with their bodies. If they allowed it, they would be completely vulnerable. Vulnerable in front of their potential enemies, in front of the friends of the man they had sworn to destroy. This is a risk that they couldn't take for more than obvious reasons. However, for Krillin, that more than obvious a negative answer from C-18, the girl of his dreams, was like a big blow to her smooth head, so he clumsily tried to convince her, no, we wouldn't do something like that. Trust me. But while Krillin tried to negotiate peacefully and even with chivalry, sweetness, and obvious clumsiness, Ten Shinhan continued his role as bad cop. We have no reason to lie to you. In the same way that we know how to reprogram you, we also have in our possession a device with which to destroy you only pressing a single button. If we wanted to, we wouldn't need to deceive you. Those words startled the androids, who remembered with horror the dark feeling that someone could end their life with the push of a button. The terrible feeling of having no choice but to obey someone weak than him. The terrible feeling of having to choose between slavery or death. However, after thinking a bit, C-17 regained his composure and tried to think rationally about this presumed threat. If you have this device, why haven't you saved yourself the trouble of coming here and using it? What was C-17 implying right now? C-17 and C-18 believed that these three had come to scam them with the story of reprogramming them and disabling their bombs to kill them during operation. His objective was solely and exclusively to kill them, the same thing that the Saiyans tried a few hours ago. In their heads there was no possibility that they had another objective. If they could kill them without the need to scam them, why hadn't they done it before? The answer was obvious. They don't have that supposed remote control, they just tried to trick them so that they agreed with the mortal operation. Mainly because Gohan and Krillin have opposed killing 3 people who haven't killed anyone yet. And because the Saiyans want to fight against you, answered Mutant Rashi, who tried to show an attitude between cordiality and hostility when speaking with the 3 androids. But nevertheless. Plank. 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 That answer didn't seem to convince them. It was more than evident that C-17's applause was extremely sarcastic, as if he were applauding a performance with a more or less convincing script but with various plot failures and a terrible staging. It seems to me that these excuses are just lies and that you have neither the way to reprogram us nor to kill us. Nice try, I almost believed it. If you don't mind, could you go back to your hiding place to think of a new plan to stop us? We have things to do. JRJJJ. You damn arrogant fool, Ten Shinhan said with evident anger and impatience. They were risking their lives and everyone's for them, they were offering them an unbeatable offer that would make them completely free, but... did they make fun of them? And once again Krillin stood in front of Ten Shinhan to prevent him from starting a fight. He still had more arguments that could convince them to collaborate peacefully with them. I understand that it is hard for you to believe that we have such good intentions and that you still don't trust us. But believe me in the next thing I'm going to tell you. C-17 and C-18, you are in grave danger and so is the world. Oh, so you guys had a plan B? C-17 answered, fascinated by the insistence of the 3 presumed weaklings in front of him. He was amused to see that it was true that when you lack physical power you try to make up for that lack using your head. In this case inventing another story to deceive them. None of that, we are telling you the truth. Dr. Gero, or rather, his computer created an android called Cell, created from the cells of Goku, Piccolo, Frieza, Ten and many others. And he has come from the future to devour you and thus achieve his perfect form. And right now he is too strong, too strong. It is impossible that you can beat him, so we have to take you to a safe place. The best thing is to hide in a place that is not in this world so that he doesn't find you. Because if it does and devours you, everything will be lost. Unless Broly returns. Krillin replied, explaining Cell's story and possible solutions in a very hasty way, showing how nervous he was. If he didn't convince them with this, he didn't know how he could do it. And from the expression on their faces, he wasn't having much success. If you want to make up another story, it would be better to make it more credible. Said C-18, who found that all this story was even more crazy and improbable than the previous one, like any alternative plan. Failure. They had failed to convince them. The frustration on Krillin's face was more than evident, they had come to Earth surely for nothing. And what was worse, his waifu now considered him a liar and technically she had rejected him. That was a serious blow to the morale and self-esteem of our little bald friend who only wanted a tall, blonde, pretty and strong girl in his life. However, the quiet and almost autistic C-16 came to the rescue of our enamored hero, that Cell you speak of. By any chance you were fighting him about 6 hours ago near the east area? A comment from the least expected person that surprised everyone equally. Yes, Piccolo, who has become incredibly strong after merging Kami, managed to corner him, but due to a serious mistake on our part, from Chaos and Goku, Cell managed to escape and multiply his power. Now he must be devouring other humans to increase his power even more before coming for you, replied Mutant Rashi on behalf of Krillin, who was still recovering from the emotional blow. A few hours ago. 2 powerful people fighting, and then 5 more joined. You mean that your radar wasn't damaged? Asked C-18 to C-16, which until now supported the theory of the C-16 radar malfunction. However, this incredible coincidence began to confuse her. Were they telling the truth? Was something like this really happening, or was it a very well prepared and studied staging to confuse them to make them fall into their trap? No, he is not. What's more, right now I feel like two extremely powerful Ki are fighting thousands of kilometers to the southwest of here, insisted C-16, which was stroking a squirrel that had perched on his shoulder at the same time that he offered him a nut. That's right. Those two must be Cell and Piccolo. Right now he is trying to kill him or prevent him from getting stronger until we can all unite against him and take you to a safe place, Krillin said with enthusiasm, seeing that his waifu began to believe that he wasn't a liar who wanted to kill her. It was evident that something strange was happening if both their versions of C-16 began to intertwine, so C-17, who appeared to be the leader of the group, had no choice but to acknowledge that there was a possibility that they had reason, even partially. Alright. Let's suppose we believe that the bastard Jero created a new android in the future, that he has traveled in time, that his mission is to devour us, and that you have faced him. Let's just say it's more or less believable considering how twisted Dr. Jero was and taking into account C-16 readings, but... Are you saying he is stronger than me? Ha! That is impossible. I am the most powerful warrior that has ever existed. And that last part of his speech immediately put the 3Z warriors on alert, who had a very bad feeling of what could happen next. Oh no. Bulma's prophecy is going to be fulfilled. Mutant Rashi said, who thanks to his extensive experience was beginning to foresee that everything was about to become complicated in the worst possible way. Let me guess, C-17, do you want to propose another game? C-18 asked rhetorically, since she knew that her brother was going to propose next. Rhetorical question that C-17 recognized immediately, responding with an obvious answer, you know me well, sister. Goku can wait for now. Why don't we show that we are the strongest by defeating that supposed brother of ours and that we don't need your help? They are siblings, what a relief, Krillin thought with relief upon knowing that he had one less love rival despite how dangerous that scenario was becoming. Although neither Krillin nor the audience of the 80-90s wouldn't be so calm if they had seen how the relationship between siblings evolved in anime during the 21st century, incest between siblings is pandemic nowadays. Do what you want, but I'm not going to look for that Cell by car, C-18 replied, who didn't mind satisfying his brother's whim, but as long as they weren't 100% stupid. At least not twice in a row and with the same stupidity. And although he wanted to continue on his way by car, C-17 had to be flexible and accept the terms of the negotiation. Don't worry, we will fly. What do you say, C-16? I don't advise you to go. It is practically certain death, C-16 replied due to his good sense and because he was only interested in killing Goku and dangerous beings that are a danger to life in general. You should listen to what the big man says, Ten Shinhan said, still showing quite a bit of hostility towards the androids. Although he was beginning to like C-16. A shame. How about you wait for us here with these three? We will be back shortly to continue our game. I almost forgot that you only care about eliminating Goku, C-17 said, showing that he didn't want to give up his game. Have you not listened to us and your friend? You are no match for that monster, Ten Shinhan protested, who intervened in the flight of C-17 with the obvious intention of preventing his advance. It is you who don't listen properly. I am the strongest, replied C-17, who had an ego too excessive right now. He believed himself to be the strongest being in the universe after easily defeating the Super Saiyan, theoretically the strongest being up to that moment. Arrogant and out-of-place words that sadly reminded them of a certain person who because of that arrogance made things much worse that day. Oh no. Another Vegeta, no. A more educated Vegeta at least. Mutant Rashi said, trying to see the bright side of everything. 10. Please wait. Cried Krillin, who kept trying to convince himself that was possible to reach an agreement without the need to fight. But Ten Shinhan knew perfectly well that there was no going back. Peace was never an option. They wouldn't come for good to be re-educated by the obvious and understandable that this could actually be a trap. Instead of fleeing from Cell, the arrogant C-17 would go to fight him to show that he is the strongest. So if they didn't submit to him now, everything would all have been in vain. In fact, they would have made it worse, just as Bulma predicted. And none of them were willing to listen to another of her scoldings where she would remember that she was right one more time. It wasn't something they wanted to hear again. So I guess the peaceful negotiations are over. You will come with us, either by hook or by crook. Ten Shinhan said, getting progressively closer to C-17, Diojotaro meme. Which continued to deeply underestimate the capabilities of our bald friend. Dear, you never learn. It taxes my comprehension. Why would fight a battle you can't? Why? Palm. Boom. An imprudence that earned him a punch from Ten Shinhan in his pretty face, a very painful impact against the asphalt, and most important of all, losing your beloved stolen van against which he crashed. A punch so fast, powerful, and unexpected for C-18 and C-16 that for the first time since they appeared in the series made them felt fear and surprise. How can this be? C-18 yelled upon that Ten Shinhan, someone who couldn't even be considered a nuisance, not only hit his brother, he also managed to hurt him. For the first time since they were modified, someone had been able to hurt them, and that person had been a simple human. That wasn't possible. Not even 4 Super Saiyan at once could make them bleed. That guy is Ten Shinhan. What's happening? C-16 said while covering the squirrel with his hands so that it wouldn't be collaterally injured. Krillin, you've already seen it, you can't negotiate with them. I'll knock them unconscious and get them to Bulma before the situation gets complicated. I don't think it will take me long, Ten Shinhan said, declaring his intentions as he approached C-17, which was beginning to emerge from the crater in which he had been embedded. C-18, this one is mine, don't interfere, C-17 said to his sister to continue with their beautiful and honorable tradition of 1vs1 fighting. Hi. And you too. Do you want to fight too? C-18 answered affirmatively to her brother at the same time that she asked Krillin and Mutant Rashi if they planned to follow the same form of acting as Ten Shinhan with her and C-16. That, if possible, we would prefer not to have to do it, C-18 said Krillin, who didn't want to fight with C-18 nor let someone else do it, especially the perverted Mutant Rashi. Okay, then I'll wait. This can be interesting, C-18 replied as she sat on a rock to watch the combat. Perfect. Maybe I can convince her during the course of the fight that we are telling the truth, Krillin said and thought with some optimism. And while Krillin was still in his pink world, Mutant Rashi tried to check if C-16 was thinking of waiting or not, and you. However, when he saw that he sat next to a tree where he played with the birds that landed on him, he gave up asking. His answer was more than obvious, well, I see, maybe Gohan was right about you. Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you, although that would save us a lot of trouble, Ten Shinhan said arrogantly to the arrogant C-17. It's funny, I was about to say the same thing. Luckily for you, I have never considered you a problem, C-17 replied that he couldn't allow someone to be more arrogant than him if he could avoid it in an elegant and violent way. And if you are lucky, that will be the worst and at the same time the best mistake of your life, Ten Shinhan replied as he used to do before Dragon Ball Z. But this time increasing its energy in such a way that the same planet felt his great power and covering his entire body in flames. Flames so hot that and concentrated that they began to evaporate the clothes of C-17, which was several meters away from him. Meanwhile 1,000 miles away. Pam! Plosh! Crash! Hey! Piccolo and Cell fought fiercely with each other. Piccolo had the advantage when it came to power, although the difference wasn't as noticeable as he wanted. Unfortunately Cell, by possessing both his cells, those of the Saiyan and that of the Frost Demons, had an atrocious survival capacity. No matter how much he was injured, he was able to survive and regenerate instantly without an apparent expenditure of energy, while Piccolo progressively accumulated damage and fatigue. You are a tough nut to crack, but sooner or later you will end up becoming part of me. Damn, I have to get rid of him as soon as possible and go for C-17 and C-18, once I find them and absorb them neither he nor anyone will be able to stop me, Cell said and thought while pointing Piccolo with his sting. Hard nut to crack. It's funny, it's you who should have died a dozen times. Your appearance doesn't deceive, you have the vitality of a cockroach. But even they die if they are stepped on hard enough. Damn, I have to kill him so that there is nothing left of his cells, but it is not as simple as it seems. Goku, Gohan, I'll need your help sooner than later, hurry up, Piccolo said and thought as he tried to recover as he spoke against the arrogant anthropomorphic bug. Ha ha ha. I am almost invincible and in part it is thanks to you, Cell replied, remembering once again that he has Piccolo's cells. However, Piccolo wasn't able to respond with a clever phrase and neither did Cell attack him with his tail as they had planned. Something interrupted them. Something distracted them. Specifically an incredible key, a key with a combat power far above that of an ordinary Saiyan, who had suddenly appeared thousands of kilometers from here. Shit, that's Ten Shinhan's key. Fighting those androids has been inevitable from what I see. Now more than ever I cannot let this monster escape from here, Piccolo thought as he organized his priorities in this fight. Right now the most important thing was to make sure he didn't escape than to try to destroy him. That great key. It belongs to Ten Shinhan, and he must be fighting someone. But I can't feel the ki of that other person. Which means that... He. I have to slip Piccolo and go there to collect energy, Cell thought, who also changed his priorities. Priorities that contradicted those of his enemy. At that time, in Bulma's spaceship, 4 people came out of the training rooms at the same time. Those people were Trunks, Vegeta, Yam and Ginger, who came out after a few hours of training. Hours of training that for them was more than a year. Mom, what is the situation out there? Trunks asked, who had grown much taller, muscular, and had noticeably grown hair, unlike the other 3 Saiyans, whose appearance was exactly the same as how they had entered. Oh Trunks, how cute you have become after a year of training. You can tell you have my genes, said Bulma unconsciously without thinking very well that this comment could make Trunks blush, anger Yam, provoke outrage in Vegeta and discomfort in Ginger. Stop fooling around. Take us back to Earth, it's time to scrap those pieces of junk, said Vegeta, who was looking at the Earth from the window while feeling Piccolo and Cell's ki while smirking evilly. I will guide you to a shuttle that will take you directly to Kami's palace. But technically everyone you want to face except for C-17 is biological. There is no metal to scrap from them, Bulma replied, who was forced to correct that scientifically inaccurate comment. It was an expression, Brainiac. Did you like that about her on the other timeline too? Yam protested seeing that Vegeta and Bulma were interacting. Please. Let's go kill androids. We'll have time later to fight each other, said Ginger, who didn't want any more relationship problems around her. She already had enough with her problems. In the same spaceship, in a different room. Gohan was sitting with his eyes closed, concentrating on creating a stage in his mind. A training method that allowed him to simulate in great detail battles against other enemies without the need to move. An ability that both he and Krillin used in the official version of Dragon Ball on the way to Namek. I know it was filler chapters, but Bulma was in panties, in my heart that will always be official. However this time he wasn't using it to fight, but to be immersed in an experience. A tragic experience in which both his father, his mother, his grandfather, his friends. They all died. Everyone died for their lack of initiative, for their lack of foresight, for their mistakes. For his lack of power. And because of the anger he felt, which this time felt like it was real. After many attempts. Bam. FIU Efectos especiales un tanto caseros. Gohan finally reached the Super Saiyan transformation. I finally got it, Gohan said as he admired his golden aura, blonde hair and green eyes. An appearance that he knew his mother didn't like but nevertheless he did and a lot, since it meant a lot to him. Gohan unknowingly went through another phase of adolescence. And someone came to celebrate that important moment in his life. Hello Simba. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.